Welcome back to Train Signal. You're watching the third part of the video on Lab 5, Group Policy Management. In this video, you will learn how to determine the resultant set of policies. This is the cumulative effect of all the policies applied on the user. And you will also learn to play what-if scenarios. What if you were to move the user from one OU to another? What exactly would the result be on the user object? So, let's play the scenarios. And one more time, let's go to this diagram and see the policies that are affecting the user Jill Smith. Jill Smith is a user in the accounting OU, and in fact, if I were to take you to DC1 very quickly, and here's the OU California, the California OU where Jill Smith's user account is located has the following 6 policies applied. In other words, when the user Jill Smith logs on, she gets the effects of each of these policies. Well, Jill Smith has been complaining lately saying that, you know what, every time she goes to her desktop, she cannot find my computer. She is unable to change the background of her desktop and so forth. And perhaps you know exactly what policy is the one that is creating that problem. Or perhaps you do not know, especially in light of the fact that you may have several policies and each of those policies may have different settings. That is why it is extremely important to set up multiple policies, and in each policy only change the settings that you would like to be affected. For example, in the drive mapping, we know that the only thing that this policy is doing is giving drive mappings to users. The My Docs policy is redirecting the documents folder. The Office XP policy is actually applying or installing Office XP on client computers. Well, what you could also have done was created one policy and have multiple settings within it, and then let that one policy apply all those settings to the user accounts. It would really be difficult to troubleshoot in that scenario. However, since you have several policies and you know exactly what each policy does, perhaps you can pinpoint, or perhaps you cannot, simply because you have too many policies in your domain. What you can do is run what is known as the resultant set of policies, also known as RSoP, and find out exactly what the settings the user will receive once these policies are applied to the user object. So let me show you how to do that. Let us click on this tool called Group Policy Results. So here we go. Now I'm going to right click on this and then run the Group Policy Results wizard. So running this wizard will show me exactly what the settings are to a particular user. So I'm going to click on the next button on the welcome screen. Now it wants us to know on which computer you would like to have the settings be in effect. In other words, Jill Smith is logging on from which computer? Well, we're going to say Jill Smith is logging on not from this computer because we are sitting on DC1. Jill Smith typically uses another computer. I'm going to click on the browse button, and over here we need to enter a computer object. I'm going to type CLI and click on the check names box over here, and it found the computer object for me, client1. Whatever client computer you pick up over here will be important because the computer settings of the GPUs are applied to the computer account, and this will make sure that the resultant set of policies shows you both the user configuration as well as the computer configuration. Let's click on the next button, and now it wants to know, well, which user do you want to test against that computer object? So what we're going to say is the following. Let's test Jill Smith when she logs on to the computer called client1. So I picked up Jill Smith's account over here. I'm going to click on the next button, and now it gives us a summary screen saying that it's going to test for the username Jill Smith when she logs on to the computer named client1 on the benandbrady.com domain. Let's click on the next button, and it should start generating the report for us. This should take a moment or two. Here we go. The report is finished, and the report result is displayed as a little link over here so that you can save this report. You do not have to run this report again and again. I'm going to click on the close button, and let's have a look at the report. I'm just going to adjust my screen over here a little bit so you can see more of the report. Alrighty, let's have a look here. Okay, so going down the list over here, it tells you the computer name from which this user is logging on from, and going down which policies have been applied. Here's a default domain policy that was applied to this user, and going down the list, we come to the important portion, which is the applied GPUs. It shows you all the GPUs that are being applied to this particular user object. If the GPU was denied for whatever reasons, for permissions, for other reasons, it will show you right over here. And then going down the list, it will give you any problems that it ran into. For example, over here, you can see that there was one issue. Look at this. The group policy infrastructure was successful, the folder redirection was successful, and so forth. It ran into a problem when it ran the software installation. And I can explain exactly what happened. I'll show you that in a moment. but I deliberately made the scenario to show you that in case something does not work out, you'll actually be able to see it over here. This has helped me tremendously in troubleshooting scenarios. Let me give you an example. Remember folder redirection? When we did the GPO for this, we actually had to go to the folder called user docs and make sure that the settings on the permission setting on that folder was sufficient so that when the user logs on, they're able to create their own subfolder within the user docs folder. Well, for some reason, if you forget to do that, what will happen is that the folder redirection will not work, and right here it will tell you that it is not working because of security issues. Over here it's telling us that the software installation did not complete simply because the user needs to log on one more time, and I'll tell you exactly what has happened in a moment. Okay, so here's the report, and the report tells us exactly what settings are working, what settings are not working, and if the user is not getting a particular setting, you will see it right here in the report that the following GPO is not applied. For example, if you have given a security GPO to this user object, and when you actually visit the user's desktop, you see that the user is able to use my computer object and can change the background on her desktop, whereas she should not be doing that. You can go back and run this for this user object and find out exactly why she's not getting those settings, and you will notice that the GPO that actually gives her those settings has not run for whatever reason. Okay, I want to show you one more thing. This report is saved at this point, and it will remain over here for good. So in other words, later on in a few weeks, if you would like to run this report one more time, you do not have to go through the wizard again. All you have to do is right click on this object and then say rerun query. It's going to generate the report on the fly. Those of you familiar with database programs such as Access or any other database for that matter, this is simply a query that is saved. These are the instructions that is saying that go and get the following information. If you make any changes to the GPOs over here and rerun this report, you will immediately be able to see the results over here on the screen without having to create this report one more time. Better still, you can save this and print this out. Let me show you how to do that. Once the report is created, you right click on this object and say save report. It actually saves it in an HTML format. So I'm going to save it to the desktop. So here we go. I'm going to say save it to the desktop, and I'm going to leave the file name as is, jsmith on client 1, and click on the save button. It already exists. I'm going to say okay, go ahead and replace, and I'm going to minimize the screen, and here we are. Okay, so this was a report that was saved on the desktop. Now it is in the HTML format. You can print it out and keep it for documentation, even email it to somebody else. Okay, and then the links are pretty good over here. You can click on it to show you can expand each of these objects as you go along. So I'm going to click on hide, and it will hide that particular object. Okay, so let's close this. So what I've showed you so far is how to generate a report and how to save that report so that you can run this again and again. Now, regarding the problem that happened, remember if you, let's go down this list one more time. And remember this user was not able to get the applications simply because I have to log on one more time. It's telling you right over here. It's not a critical problem. Actually, if this were a critical problem, you will see a red X or a cross over here. This is simply a cautionary measure saying that you need to do something else. Over here it is saying that the software did not install. The user has to simply log on one more time. Okay, so here's what happened. If you recall, when we created the Office 2003 GPO, let me close this report. When we created the Office 2003 GPO, we said that this GPO should actually upgrade the Office XP. And eventually we removed the Office XP GPO from the container CA. Just to simulate the scenario and show you an error message, what I did was I went back and put the Office XP GPO back over here. Okay, and the last thing we did was we went to Office 2003 GPO and say we set it to uninstall the application. If you recall, once again, we went through the whole life cycle of the application. We said install, then upgrade to Office 2003, and then finally uninstall. Well, what I did was I put back this GPO called Office XP right over here, so that now when the user has logged on, the Office XP Office XP has been assigned one more time to the user account, and the user has not clicked on the application button to install it. Let me take you to that computer to make this point. So here we go. Let's go to the client 1, and on client 1 I've already logged on as jsmith, and over here programs are ready for me to install. So look at this. If I click on the Word button over here, it's going to actually start the installation program. So that's the message that you saw. I'm going to minimize this and let the installation finish in the background. That's the message that you saw when you looked at the report over here saying that the user needs to log on. Once this is installed, and then when the user Jill Smith logs off and logs in one more time, that error message will be gone. Okay, just want to make sure that you understand when you see an error message what it is and how you can fix it. So that was the first part of what I wanted to show you in this video, which is how to determine what is known as the resultant set of policies. Just a note of comparison over here for those of you who have used Active Directory in Windows 2000. Windows 2000 gave us this wonderful tool known as Active Directory and then the GPOs that went along with it. However, Microsoft did not provide us with the group policy management tool like they did over here in Windows Server 2003. In fact, even in Server 2003, when it was released, GPMC tool was not ready. That is why you have to go to the Microsoft's website and download this tool separately to manage GPOs. What this tool did was it unified and centralized the management of GPOs within this tool and gave us some excellent links by which we can troubleshoot the application of these GPOs in our domain. For example, in Windows 2000, there was no way you could tell why a user did not get a certain setting. You had to actually literally go through each and every GPO and through each setting of the GPOs. Remember, over there were no reports. And then try to determine by disabling GPOs and activating one GPO at a time as to exactly what each GPO is doing and then come at the result. All that is history at this point. Over here, simply run the group policy results GPO and then you'll be able to get a report that specifies exactly what is going on when the user logs on to a certain computer. So that's the first part of this video. The second part is playing what if scenarios. Let's do that. And this is extremely useful. Let's say that the user J. Smith, let me take you back to where this user was. Actually, I can show it to you right over here. If you recall, we created the user J. Smith in California in the OU accounting. All right. Now let's say that J. Smith is moving from the California location to North Carolina location. So in North Carolina also there's an accounting department. So what we need to do is move Jill Smith's user account from accounting in California to North Carolina. But before we do that, we want to make sure that Jill Smith gets all the settings that she got while she was working in California. So she's felt welcome in North Carolina as well. So what you can do is the following. Rather than just move the user account and then ask Jill Smith to log in and see what settings she's getting, we can play a what if scenario. We can do that by using the group policy modeling. So let's do that. I'm going to right click on this and start the group policy modeling wizard. Once again, there are two links. This is the resultant set of policies, also known as group policy results. This is group policy modeling, or also known as playing what if analysis. I'm going to right click on this and start the group policy modeling wizard. This wizard will let us simulate a scenario in which the user has moved from one location to another, or you can simulate any other scenario that you like. I'm going to click on the next button over here, and here we go. It's asking us against which domain controller you want to play this what if scenario with. Just a note over here, what if scenarios are available only with Windows Server 2003, whereas all the other reports that I showed you, you could perform again against Windows 2000 Server as well. This one you have to run against the Server 2003. So I'm going to say run it on this particular domain controller, which is DC1. Click on the next button, and now it wants more information. It wants to know whether you want to simulate the setting for a computer object, namely container, so that you can see the results of the computer configuration of the group policy, or if you want to see the simulation for a user object. In our case, we would like to see it for a user object. So I'm going to click on this user object and click on the browse button, and then select a user J. Smith. I'm going to type JSMI, click on the check names button, and here it is, our user. Okay. So what we want to do is the following. We want to simulate the settings for the user called J. Smith when she logs on. Let's click on the next button to proceed ahead. Now it wants to know whether our site has a slow connection, and if so, then should we use a dial-up? We don't have to worry about that. We are running this in a local area network, so I'm going to click on next to go on to the next box over here. Okay, now it wants to know the user location. Remember, J. Smith is a user account in the accounting OU in the California container. So we would like to simulate what happens when she moves on to the North Carolina location. So I'm going to click on the browse button, and then over here navigate to North Carolina, and then she's going to be an accountant in North Carolina as well. So let's put her user account in the North Carolina, in the accounting OU under North Carolina. Remember, we have not physically moved the user account. We are just playing a scenario over here to simulate what will happen if the user were to move to North Carolina. Click on the next button, and now it wants to know whether she'll belong to any special security group over here. So for example, if she's no longer in her default security groups, let's say that she was added to a backup operators group. You could add the group backup operators over here to see what settings that does a group backup operator gets for that particular, for those GPOs. So we are not changing any group memberships for her. So we're going to click on next, and then it wants to know whether all filters will be applied. We do not have any WMI filters, so we're going to click on next. And now here's a summary selection saying that we have selected the user J Smith, and her new location will be the accounting OU in North Carolina. Let's click on next, and it is doing the simulation for us. It's going to simulate all the settings and tell us exactly what settings will she receive. I'm going to click on the finish button, and it's going to generate a report for us. Just like before, it created a report underneath over here so that you can go back, make changes to your GPOs, and then run this report one more time. So let's have a look at this report. When she's in North Carolina, I'm going to go down the list over here. She will get the following GPOs, and the list should be coming up. So here we go, applied GPOs. She'll get the default domain policy. If you recall, everybody gets the default domain policy. She'll get the drive mapping GPO and the desktop GPO and the settings contained within it. If you want to know what the settings are, you click on the query over here. You click on the settings button, and then it shows you exactly what the different settings will be for each of those. For example, prohibit access to the control panel, and that is applied to this particular user when she's in that container. Okay, so let's go back to summary. Just want to show you one more thing. So these were the 3 policies that were applied when she's in a North Carolina OU. Let's check that out. I'm going to go back over here, and if you go to North Carolina, you will notice that there are actually 2 GPOs over here, desktop GPO, the drive mapping GPO. However, when you click on North Carolina and go to the group policy inheritance, there are 3 GPOs that are applied. Default domain policy is inherited, and these 2 GPOs are applied over here as well. So the report told us exactly that. When she is in North Carolina, she'll get these GPOs, and these are the different settings that she will get when she's over there. So what you can do is check this out, make sure this is exactly what she should get while she's in that location, and then finally go ahead and move the user account. This helps us tremendously in avoiding conflicts within a network, or making sure that the users can do exactly what they are assigned to do in their networks. Let's minimize this, and let's go back to our document over here. And this should also conclude our video. In this video, I showed you how to create what is known as the resultant set of policies by running a query. Then I also showed you how to play what-if scenarios by moving a user object, actually not moving the user object, and yet trying to determine in a simulation what the new settings for the user will be if the user were to be moved to a different location. I thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in a different video very soon.